Let's get you guys a video up and running.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have
that is the key point in U.S. intelligence assessment. You know that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had not been made.
I know that better than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But I'm asking you whether the order was given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. Why would you bury things in a mountain, 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons. Because they can quickly make it 90. They have all the elements. They have. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No, they're trying to build an ICBM.
No, but
so
that's a question. That's a question of intent. And you know, in the intelligence assessment, that it was that Iran wanted to be a threshold state and use this leverage. I'm talking about the public March assessment, and that's why I was asking you if you know something more from March.
But that's also an inaccurate representation of it. That's an accurate representation of it. That's not how intelligence is read. That's not how intelligence is used. Here's what the whole world knows. Now, forget about intelligence. What the IAEA knows. They are enriching uranium well beyond anything you need for a civil nuclear program. So why would you enrich uranium at 60%?
Right.
If you don't intend to one day use it to take it to 90 and build a weapon? Right. Why are you developing ICBMs? Why do you have 8,000 short-range missiles and 2,000 to 3,000 long mid-range missiles that you continue to develop? Why do you do all these things? They have everything they need for a nuclear weapon. They have the delivery mechanisms. They have the enrichment capability. They have the highly enriched uranium that is stored.
Yes.
That's all we need to see.
Right. Well,
especially in the hands of a regime that's already involved in terrorism and proxies and all kinds of things around. They are the source of all instability
and no one's
in the Middle
disputing.
East.
No one's disputing that. I'm not doing that here. And they were censured at the IAEA.
I'm just throwing this out there. Generally speaking, I don't like people who wear pinstripe suits. So I'll just tell you which side of the fight I'm going to land on this one. But yes, the United States did in fact strike Iran over this weekend, in case you guys missed it. A lot of Americans here at home are worried that Iran is going to attack the United States of America, or that somehow sleeper cells are going to be activated. We're going to touch on that today, just briefly here in this podcast. Now, it was kind of odd, the amount of messages I ended up getting on Sunday, not so much Saturday, but on Sunday morning here in the United States from concerned family members, friends, et cetera, all worried that Iran is somehow going to attack the United States of America here on our home soil. And it's like this stuff just fell out of the sky. Everybody is worried about World War III. Everybody thinks that Iran is going to end up jumping into this fight. Everybody thinks that China is going to jump into this fight. Right now, I'll let you guys know that none of that is true, and we'll go over all of that. So I'm just going to give you the bottom line up front. I do not believe, and neither does the White House, that the U.S. should be worried about Iranian sleeper cells, but there is definitely some things that you should be concerned about. Like, there is a good cause for concern. I'll pull up the statistics in a little bit about how many Iranians got let into the country after they were detained during the Biden administration. The number's kind of staggering, to be perfectly honest with you. We actually turned a fair amount back, though. But is it really a possibility that the Iranians are going to strike us? Well, before we get into all of that, we're going to also discuss kind of what took place this weekend. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty freaking significant that the U.S. ended up striking the site over here, Fordo. Now, these are brand new satellite images that came out yesterday. That show after the strike and what ended up taking place. Now, I did a very in-depth research on Fordo and ended up talking about whether or not these GBU-57 30,000-pound bunker busters with 5,300-pound warheads would actually do the trick. And again, here's your satellite imagery. Now, notably, what experts are saying is that all of this white that you can see across this mountainside right here is actually the cement dust that ended up kicking out. These are the only confirmed satellite images that I've actually seen of the Fordo site. Now, interesting enough, there is two separate locations here that you can see up on your screen. You've got 3 holes right here, and you've got 3 holes right here. Now, unless the Air Force had that type of pinpoint accuracy where we were able to just drill them down, which I don't think is the case, because why wouldn't you put them all in the same damn hole? It looks like we dropped a total of 6 GBU-57s on Fordo. Now, there is a total of 14 GBU-57s that got dropped in this airstrike in general by B-2s that flew from the United States undetected all the way over to Iran, bombed the crap out of them, and then flew all the way back to the U.S. yesterday, where they landed and are probably at home waking up. Those pilots are probably on some well-deserved freaking crew rest, waking up over at their homes right now. Zach Presley jumping in, becoming a true supporter, and Turbo Cars gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, friend. All right. Now, to give you an idea, I just did a very quick assessment yesterday and kind of looked at the blueprints that I had already found in that 2019 leaked blueprints. And you could kind of see, generally speaking, where those bombs likely ended up striking in Fordo. And if we do have that concrete that's kicking out, it looks like we had successful hits on both of the freaking main shafts that are over there in Fordo, where they'd be enriching all that uranium. David Abrego says, so many AI videos that side with the Islamic Revolution all over Facebook. Matt, I had to get off Facebook because that's all there was recommended to me. No, it's absolutely disgusting. The amount of fake videos and stuff that are out floating around right now. It's absolutely disgusting. The amount of people that showed what appeared to be like nuclear detonations or very large explosions. Some of them actually were real coming out of Ukraine. Some of them were real coming out of Syria. Just tons of them, man. And people are claiming that the U.S. deleted this freaking mountain and that all sorts of, it's not true, guys. It's really not. This is the destruction, right? A lot of people would think that a 30,000 pound bunker busting bomb would have just blown the freaking top off this thing like a volcano, but that's just not how explosives work. David Abrego, coming to true supporter. Hell yeah, brother. That's not how these things work. All right, it's not. You're talking about an actual freaking mountain. You know what it takes to blow a freaking mountain in half? I mean, for the love of God, it was kind of disgusting, the amount of misinformation that ended up coming out this weekend with people just trying to jump on this whole thing. And Iran already, you know, coming out, of course, saying that the United States didn't destroy all of their enriched uranium, that they were able to move it to a new secure location and that we weren't able to get it. However, the White House is attesting that that is not true, that they are quite confident that we ended up deleting all of their enriched uranium.
We are confident, yes, that Iran's nuclear sites were completely and totally obliterated, as the president said in his address to the nation on Saturday night. And we have a high degree of confidence that where those strikes took place is where Iran's enriched uranium was stored. The president wouldn't have launched the strikes if we weren't confident in that. So this operation was a resounding success, and administration officials agree with that, as well as Israel.
Okay, cool. So the United States says we did a good job. Well, what do we have to show it? Well, we do have the confirmed sites or the confirmed impacts over on Fordo, and we dropped a total of 14, what is being said now is a total of 14 GBU-57s, all right, along with a bunch of Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles also ended up getting fired as well at those other 2 locations that are up there on your screen. That would be Natanz and Isfahan. On this site just to the south of Fordo, Natanz, it is said that we dropped at least 2 GBU-57s on Natanz. Now, that to me speaks that we at least expected a good amount of enriched uranium to be stored at Natanz. And Israel has bombed it several different times. Okay, it's not like it hasn't had its own little series of freaking strikes. But if we ended up dropping the GBU-57s on it, I got a feeling that Israel had some very good intelligence, or either the United States had intelligence, that a lot of the enriched uranium that Iran said it was moving, et cetera, that's perfectly safe, was likely over at Natanz, which would warrant the 2 GBU-57s, I would think would be a very good excuse, but they ended up penetrating pretty deep. Good overview to kind of give you guys an idea of everything that ended up going out this weekend. You had 7 B-2 Spirit bombers that ended up taking place, 14 GBU-57s. Where did the Tomahawks go? I mean, it was a buttload, man. 30 Tomahawks, 30 plus Tomahawks, all right, ended up going out as well, ended up being fired from the U.S. Navy. So all in all, I'd say this was an excellent freaking strike package that ended up going out. MT says, did you see Candace and Fuentes on Iranian State TV? Yes, I did. I did see that. It's not that they were speaking on Iranian State TV that I'm aware of. It's that they ended up pulling little excerpts and clips from those two knuckleheads. Candy was telling the U.S. military to get dishonorably discharged and praising Aaron Bushnell. Yeah, well, they're morons. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say to that. They're morons, and the more we talk about them, the more ground they get. I just think they're idiots. Zach Presley says, Matt, just throw back to last week talking about people worried about the invisible vest. They forgot what 2 kids did with just pressure cookers in Boston not that long ago. Right. And so that's the thing when it comes to those different reports that Sarah Adams put out, and that she continues to fearmonger and talk about, is it makes absolutely no sense to be smuggling in a bunch of invisible explosive vests here in the United States of America when you can just quite simply And I mean, quite simply, build them here at home. If you've got the blueprints, this is the 21st century. This isn't the 1990s. You don't try to smuggle that crap across through the border with the cartel. All right. You find the people here in the United States that are already here. And again, we're about to talk about how many Iranians have actually made it through the U.S. border that we know of that are living here in the United States of America. And you get that information to them and you have them build it. Why? Because it is too high risk of a scenario, because the cartels would likely end up diming out the Iranians Al-Qaeda for trying to smuggle these damn vests in. I mean, it's just stupid. It is just stupid to me that you would try to do that, right? Because the cartel stands more to lose by allowing, all right, these terrorists to smuggle those vests into the United States of America, particularly when we're at war with the cartel right now, declaring them foreign terror organizations and actually taking the fight to them. It's kind of dumb to me that anybody would consider actually doing that, because the cartel would most certainly use that as a payoff for a little bit of freedom and security to get kind of the U.S. off of its back. So I'm not too worried about the invisible vests. What I am worried about is people here at home that are being radicalized. We did have a couple terror attacks. We had one at a church here in the United States of America where a man drove his freaking truck into it. He quickly ended up getting put down. I don't remember the battle damage assessment that ended up coming off that, how many people ended up getting hurt, but it was quite a few. Here we have, oh God. And I'm putting this up here for context, and I want you guys to know people ask me to read these off, so I'm going to mute it and I'm going to read it for the people that are working right now. I hear you. I get your DMs. I see your messages down in the chat, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Video that I'm putting up on the screen is actually Iranian general talking with a member of the media, going over the actual effects of the battle. Let me see if I can get that sucker to roll. She says, yesterday, our people conducted SIGINT operations, or signal intelligence operations, and they heard that Israelis say that there were over 500 casualties in our attacks yesterday. In addition, almost 300 people are missing. Now, to catch you up to par, okay, to catch you guys up to par, since, all right, the attacks over inside of Iran launched by the United States of America, there has been about 50 ballistic missiles that have been fired into Israel, and I'm tracking maybe 10 impacts. If you're asking why are those impacts higher than any of the previously reported numbers, is because those impacts, that percentage wise, which by the way was about 10% of the Iranian ballistic missiles were actually getting through into Israel, most of them ended up impacting into nowhere. And I'm going to show you that here in just a sec. She goes on further, and they are stuck under the rubble. And about 200 people were injured, more than 200. So in our operations yesterday alone, more than 1,000 people were killed or injured or are still missing. General says, that is correct. Perhaps America has joined the war because we were very close to annihilating Israel. It was in the closing stages. We must not lift our foot from Netanyahu's throat. This guy, man. And the throats of the Zionist criminals, in addition to chopping off Trump's hand. By means of the divine wisdom of our beloved leader, who is more precious to us than blah, 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 we must slit Netanyahu's throat and send him to hell for all of eternity. She goes on, all of them, the young and the old, are occupiers. The Zionist idea in general is a satanic ideology. Now, I like this video for several reasons, because number one, it shows how ridiculously delusional these people are, trying to claim that they ended up like killing or wounding 1,000 people over the weekend with their 10 ballistic missiles that got through, which most of them ended up splashing down in the wide open. But the other thing that I like about this video is it shows the radical ideology and why it is such a threat. You know, despite what a lot of people are saying, Iran's radical ideology really does play into exactly why they're doing what they're doing, which is why they're calling them occupiers, which is why they're calling it a Zionist idea and satanic ideology, because all of this goes back down, which is why the general referenced the wisdom of their great religious leader, the Ayatollah, is just silly to me. Absolutely silly. They are also in this video, she says, everybody who lives there, the young and the old, they are all occupiers, plunderers, and enemies. So they hate all of them. Now they're fleeing in boats. Not true. Yes, just like you came in boats, you need to flee in boats back to where you came from. America's biggest asset in the region is not their warships, it is their bases. That's coming from the general. These will be annihilated in the blink of an eye. So this general is just flat out stating that they are going to attack United States assets over in the region. So what is the big deal? Why the hell is he threatening those assets? Well, they can't touch us here on the homeland. They can't. But what they can do is they can access all of our military bases and whatnot over in the region. With that being said, the U.S. is concerned for that. That's why we ended up evacuating a ton of places out. But as far as here in the United States of America are concerned, even the White House had words to say about Iran threatening the United States home turf.
Just simply raising a good question that many people around the world are asking.
So let's go to the border if we can and how that relates to the reprisals that Iran promises. One of the things they said was, you know, Donald Trump, gambler Donald Trump can start a war, we'll finish it. Well, could it be through a sleeper cell here? Well, they certainly have the numbers. It turns out over the last 4 years, there's been over 1,500 Iranians coming through our southern border, 729 qualified for release. Your reactions to the American people concerned about a possible sleeper cell reprisal here?
President Trump has no greater responsibility than protecting the homeland. And look at what he has done over the past several months to do that. He has done more than any president in American history to secure our border, and the largest mass deportation operation of illegal criminals, many of them known terrorists that Joe Biden led into this country, are being removed every day. I spoke to our Secretary of Homeland Security this morning. She held a call with governors across the country, and the Department of Homeland Security is actively engaged with our state and local law enforcement partners to protect the American people. That is the president's #1 priority in all of this, and that's ultimately what led him to make the decision to launch this strike on Saturday night, to protect our homeland from threats abroad, and we will continue to protect our homeland from threats here at home.
Caroline, but no specific threat yet in any city or any state or any building?
Not that I'm tracking, Brian, but I can assure you the Department of Homeland Security is monitoring the situation very closely.
So as this operation takes place, Democrats said they were not told about it. They were left in the dark, and they said usually there's bipartisan calls for this, and they didn't know about it. Here is Republican Thomas Massey.
We haven't been briefed. They should have called us all back. And frankly, we should have debated this war powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
Should you have called everybody back?
First of all, we did make bipartisan calls. Thomas Massey and the Democrats, he should be a
Oh, dear God. So is it necessarily true that the president exceeded his authority and that we had to, you know, essentially go to the government in order to get it? No, the president actually does have drop authority in those situations. He can actually deploy troops. He can put boots on the ground if he absolutely wants to, but he's got a limited period of time in order to do it. And all of that goes underneath like War Powers Act and several other things that the president actually did operate legally underneath his authority. Now, whether or not it does state that he has to inform Congress, okay, as he's doing these actions within like 24 hours, he's got to go before and explain why to them and explain it. And I think it's very clear why we ended up doing it. I don't think anybody in Congress really needs to get that explanation to them. But as far as here on the home front, no, we're not really worried about that at all. But on the flip side, I got to present you guys the counter narrative, which is there is a buttload of Iranians that ended up making it through underneath President Biden.
Customs and Border Protection sources tell Fox News nearly half of the Iranian nationals who crossed the border illegally during the Biden administration were released into the U.S. Border Patrol arrested 1,504 Iranian nationals at our southern border from fiscal year 2021 through 2024. 729 of them were released into the U.S. Iranians are considered special interest aliens due to national security concerns and are supposed to receive enhanced vetting by DHS. Now, officials are worried about an Iranian threat to the homeland. Today, Homeland Security sent out a bulletin warning of a heightened threat environment and low-level cyber attacks. It warns the likelihood of violent extremists here in the U.S. mobilizing would likely go up, quote, if Iranian leadership were to issue a religious ruling calling for retaliatory violence. It could increase the likelihood that a supporter of the Iranian regime is inspired to commit an act of violence in the homeland. Today, the Senate Intelligence Chairman expressed this concern.
For all we know, they may have gotten sleeper cells into the country during Joe Biden's wide open border. So the threats are serious.
The New York Police Department says, quote, out of an abundance of caution, we're deploying additional resources to religious, cultural, and diplomatic sites across NYC and coordinating with our federal partners.
Yeah, you know what they didn't put on this one about police departments releasing statements? I believe it was the LA County Sheriff's Office saying that their hearts are with the victims of the USA's bombing over inside of Iran across the weekend. I can't make that statement up. But the key point to taking away from this is that you did have under Biden that we know of at least 700 Iranians that crossed the border illegally, ended up getting detained and then making their way into the United States of America. Now, to be fair, there is a lot of Iranians that are fleeing out of Iran to get away from the Iranian regime. So it's not necessarily that there's 700 bad actors. There's actually most of the Iranians that end up leaving Iran and trying to get the hell out of there actually hate the regime. So there's that. Kenneth coming in with 2. He says, so admitting to war crimes on TV, that's smart. That's, of course, going back to the Iranian general talking about attacking the U.S. military bases, wanting to slit throats and kill everybody over inside of Israel in order to uproot them and get them the hell out of there. Right. You know, I also, where did it go? I saw it here just in the comment section a little bit ago. Yeah, somebody had talked about my comments that I made, and I ended up muting the guy and kicking him out. But he was complaining, stating that it's not a radical religious ideology. It's just simply the truth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, apparently you missed everything that is currently legal over inside of Iran. I ended up making a huge post about it. For example, do you know that the Ayatollah supports pedophilia? Throwing that out there. I wish I could make that kind of crap up, but I mean, I just quite simply, I can't make that shit up. The Ayatollah literally supports pedophilia, and all of this goes back to his interpretation of the Quran and everything that he kind of ends up thinking because of it. So yeah, in Matt's opinion, it is a radical religious ideology. Same thing. That's the reason why it's, you know, Islam's divine, or excuse me, not Islam, Palestine's divine right to the land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I'll continue to kick you out of the chat just because you hate it. I saw somebody else say that if we end up putting boots on the ground over inside of Iran, only send the MAGA supporters. Okay, well, I don't know if you realize this or not, but regardless of who you voted for, here's a hard truth for you. Regardless of who you voted for, the Ayatollah doesn't care. Neither does any other radical Islamic terror organization here in the entire world. Okay, nor do the ones here in the United States of America give two shits who you voted for either. Whether or not you're intelligent enough to know that this is a very real threat to the United States of America, also not my concern. What is my concern is that you abide by your oath, which is to obey the lawful orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over you, so help you God. So if you refuse to do that, then I've got you have no business. You deserve a dishonorable discharge and your ass should get kicked out of the military. I can't tell you how many people had came to me during the global war on terror, which is still ongoing, by the way, had came to me during the global war on terror and said, listen, if our country actually needed me and they started a draft, then I would join the military. But they don't need me right now. And what actually ended up happening was we had a bunch of soldiers get stop-lossed. A bunch of those stop-loss soldiers ended up getting killed, meaning they met their original service contract. But underneath that, you've got up to 8 years in the inactive reserve, which means the military can call you back. So if you put in for 2 years on active duty, they've got 6 years to call your ass back. And what I ended up seeing time and time again was people that ended up getting called back into active duty because there wasn't enough people to go over there and fight the actual wars that needed to be fought. And yet people still in the United States of America want to sit and whine and complain and act like they're big, freaking bad, tough guys. Now, let's go over and take a look at what's happening across Iran, because it's not like after the U.S. dropped bombs, all of a sudden everything turned off. Israel has still been working overtime over inside of Iran. As a matter of fact, they have conducted just within, I want to say it's the last 24 hours. Yeah, I want to say it's the last 24 hours. It looks like Israel has conducted over 100 different strikes across Iran. And right now, Tehran is actually exploding. The IRGC headquarters over outside of Tehran is just this massive explosion. And there is huge targets being struck all across Iran. So that's just one of several. Now, somebody asked me, I just saw it, like it came through, and it's a pretty good time. These two questions. Derek Joliffe says, what are your thoughts about threats from Russia? That's an excellent question. As a matter of fact, right now, as we speak, the Iranian foreign minister is actually sitting down with Putin over inside of Russia, and they're discussing kind of like their little way forward. Putin, however, did start off his statement, and I went to go translate the video, but I just didn't have time to translate it for you guys. I'm not going to sit here and play it and then use my broken Russian and translate. But what Putin did say is that he made his stance with Iran very clear. He made his stance on this situation very clear, but he also stated that Iran hadn't reached out for support, nor do they have like a defense agreement in place. So Putin quite literally has no reason to go in there. Putin also came out over the weekend and said that they have very good relations with Israel, and he doesn't want to screw that up either. Okay, so Putin's also playing politics and trying to balance all of this crap out at the very same time. Anybody that's telling you that Putin is about to enter into this war with United States, Iran, Israel, et cetera, and World War III is about to break out, they are very much fear-mongering you. Putin has made it very clear that they are not entering into this conflict, that Iran has not requested it, and even they offered additional aerial defense assets to Iran, which Iran turned down. So I mean, that's quite, I mean, they're being as transparent as Russia normally is, which you take it for what it is. I don't believe a damn word that comes out of the Kremlin's mouth. I don't believe a damn word that ends up coming out of Putin's mouth. But in this case, we look at their actions. We know Russia has given them S-300s and S-400s, which haven't really done Iran any good. And the bulk of them are likely destroyed at this point, and or just like Winchester on ammo. Like they've got no ammo left, right? But would Russia actually jump in here? I'm going to go with no. And I've actually talked with Nate Vance about this last week on whether or not Russia would end up jumping in. I've actually talked to him a bunch offline. I've talked to other people offline. Quite frankly, Russia just isn't in the position in order to do that militarily. They are way too tied up over in Ukraine. They've lost a buttload of people by the hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million soldiers over in Ukraine, either killed and or wounded. They're currently in the middle of a massive offensive operation, which isn't going their way. And they're a bit butthurt, okay? And they're a bit strung out. And these tariffs and everything that Trump has put, okay, in place over on China or over on sanctions with, like, it just Russia's hurting. They're hurting really bad right now. So they don't really have the ability to get involved in this. In addition to that, we have like additional, the only thing that I could see Russia really wanting to get involved with, and why, but it's too late for that, is to protect some of these like vital facilities that Iran has that actually helps out the Russian war effort. Now, those vital facilities, such as the drone component facilities, even more got struck today, and more have, like, and previously to today, a lot of them have already been struck. That would be in Russia's interest to go over there and defend, because it actually impacts the front line. But those things have already been taken out. Like, they're gone. So and Putin let it happen. Like, that's an undisputable fact. Like, if Putin wanted to get involved to make sure that those assets were okay, he would have got involved, but he didn't. And they have since been destroyed. David Abrego says, do you think we will send troops to police Iran? No, I do not. And I'm going to go over that here in just a minute after I go over some of these different strikes. There's no reason for U.S. troops to be on the ground over inside of Iran. Anybody that's telling you we're about to get involved in a ground war with Iran, flat out lying to you. Just flat out lying to you. All right. We are technically not even at war with Iran. We just, quite frankly, ended up bombing the shit out of them to get rid of the nuclear threat. This next video that's coming up is allegedly IRGC headquarters over in Iran, coming from today. Are our troops safe in the Middle East? Somebody wants to know that. Yes, I believe that they are relatively safe over in the Middle East. I actually watched a video of Trump yesterday that was giving a speech. Or I'm sorry, not giving a speech, but he was giving an interview. And he said after we ended up taking out General Soleimani, that Iran actually called him. And I do remember this happening and being like, what the hell? Because Iran fired, I think it was like half a dozen ballistic missiles or something at the U.S. consulate in Erbil, Iraq, after we ended up killing Soleimani. What Trump said was that the Iranian president, I believe it was, ended up contacting him and saying, listen, we have to retaliate for this. We get it, but we have to retaliate. It's optics, but we're not going to hit the actual site itself. And according to Trump, none of those ballistic missiles actually impacted our site. So the question is the Iranian regime going to respond? Are our troops in danger? In Matt's opinion, yeah, absolutely. This is way different, all right, than us knocking out Soleimani. Ayatollah, the freaking president back then, everybody knew, all right, what the IRGC was up to, and everybody knew that Soleimani was behind a ton of this crap, and it was being blessed off on by the Ayatollah. Everybody knew over inside of Iran that that was a justified strike in defense in order to kill him, so they responded in that way, at least according to Trump. But this is completely and totally different. All right, the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime actually believes that they have a right to have those nuclear weapons, that they have a right to continue to build those. They have had let me put it this way. They had, prior to these strikes, over 900 pounds of enriched uranium, current numbers that they possess, untold. So they had over 900 pounds, 60% enriched uranium. There was several reports saying that they were getting very close to 90% enriched uranium. But will Iran respond? Yeah, in my opinion, they will. What are they going to go after? I read reports just this morning that said that there was militia groups over inside of Iraq that were spinning themselves up to go over and attack U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq. Great. Have at it. That threat has always existed, and that threat continues to exist. I see Tower 12 was in the chat. That's awesome, man. I love you guys. But that threat has existed for quite some time. And those guys and gals of you that are disclosing the locations of where you're at, hey, probably wouldn't do that if I were you, just throwing that out there. But that threat has always existed. And Iran has killed U.S. service members. Iranian militias have killed U.S. service members just in the last couple of years. They have wounded hundreds. So there's no reason to think that this is going to be any different. People have said that over inside of Iraq that our mission over there was a complete and total failure, that we ended up getting nothing out of it. But U.S. Special Operations Forces have been operating alongside Iraqi Special Operations Forces, taking care of a lot of those threats over inside the region. So as far as I'm concerned, that's nothing new. The only thing that could be new is if Iran somehow provided them with a ballistic missile capability or, additional weapon system, whatever, that they're going to use up over against U.S. troops. I'm going to put this video just in the interest of keeping things rolling. This is Tehran. There's a report that Iran might use chemical weapons on U.S. forces, or that there might be false flag attacks over inside of Iran using chemical weapons, trying to rally the Iranian people. And they're saying that for a very good reason. Right. And the reason that they're bringing up these false flag attacks over inside of Iran and stating that that might actually go down is because, let me get this up here. Oh, man. Oh, you know what? This is a good strike video. Let me get the strike video up. But it's because that there's a call for a revolution taking place over there with the Crown Prince. And Israeli airstrikes over there are actually starting to target particular facilities in order to start facilitating that movement. Trump actually came out with a statement over this weekend. I think it was yesterday, talking about regime change in Iran. Let me see if I can grab that for you, because it's actually kind of interesting. If you guys haven't seen this, you're about to. Like I said, foreign policy is always being conducted over Twitter nowadays. I don't understand why, or over Truth Social. But yeah, he ended up calling, not particularly calling for a regime change, but basically hinting that it was going to happen. And now all of a sudden this is on everybody's radar when I told you that this was going to happen regardless, where it's coming from. Trump. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? And then he says MIGA, or make Iran great again. Iran actually used to be very friendly with the West until 1978, when this radical regime ended up taking over. I want to say it was 78 off the top of my head. Yeah, 78, I believe. Anyways, listen, there's a lot of Iranians that are pissed off at the regime, but they're also extremely scared. And because of that, you now see this new leader that's emerging. And one of the things that you need to make sure you actually have in place before all of this comes out is you need to make sure that you actually have somebody in place that's going to take care of all this crap. That person that is going to be in place is actually this man, Crown Prince Reza. I'm trying to remember how his name actually works out. Let me actually get this little statement by him up on your screen for you. I want you to listen to what he's saying. He has said now for about a week that he's had Iranian generals that have reached out to him, and that those Iranian generals have actually expressed that they want to kind of basically sign up to fight underneath him.
That I am establishing a formal channel for military, security, and police personnel to reach out directly to me, my team, and our expanding operation. This is a secure platform to efficiently manage the growing volume of inbound communications and requests from those breaking with the regime and seeking to join our movement. For those patriotic members of our armed forces, the time is now to join the nation. If you do, I will make sure your service to Iran is not forgotten and is celebrated.
Okay, so there you have it. You've got the Crown Prince stating, hey, I'm opening up a new line in case you guys want to reach out. You can do so. And again, over the last week, he's already stated that he's had several people that have came out Iranian generals saying that they're willing to like stand up and fight for him. Now, originally I ended up seeing this video right here, which I'm going to put up on the screen. I'm going to end up muting it because it's got a bunch of BS, and I'll just kind of like talk you through it as it goes. Come on, play, mute, good. We don't need your bullshit audio. But essentially, it's calling for the Iranian people to rise up. This is showing the inside of the prisons, how they ended up treating the people over inside of Iran. There's definitely signs of a regime change that could be taking place. This is showing all of the crap that these people have been put up with for years, how they're all over it. You end up last week, or was it the week before? I think it was last week, is when I saw the reports of a prison over inside of Iran that you basically had the prison guards that just walked away, and then everybody was just kind of on the streets roaming around. Made absolutely zero headlines whatsoever. Nobody even chose to dig into it. But why is that important, and why should you guys like kind of keep your eye on it? Because of this. I want you guys to check this out. Originally I saw that video and I was like, I'm not really going to pay too much nevermind to it, until I ended up seeing this video right here. Now, what that strike reportedly is it's a precision strike on a prison wall over inside of Iran. So if that's the case, and you have people that are rising up inside these prisons, what they're doing is they're taking all of the, how do you want to call them, like dissidents, or like people that have basically rescinded away from the Iranian regime, that have been in prison, that have stood up, have voiced their opinions. You can't stand up in Iran and state, bad words towards the Ayatollah. You can't, it's not America. You do that shit, your ass gets beaten, thrown in jail, and or killed, and or raped, and or hung in public. There's a million different things that happen. Dude, if you back away from Islam over inside of Iran, you can get killed. All right. Or you can get like a serious, like, I think it's like 100 lashes for women. Men can get killed. I know there's women Christians that have came out that said that they have left the Islamic faith, that they end up getting thrown in these prisons, and it's 10 times worse that's ever been reported. They end up getting raped. But this video right here, to me, is pretty key. And it's very small, and in conjunction with the last one that I just showed you, plus the verbiage that's coming out from the Crown Prince, it would definitely appear like we are starting to push that way to get these people out and onto the streets. Like, we're already starting to like edge towards that regime change. The question is whether or not the Iranian people are actually going to stand up and do it themselves. I should probably show you guys, just out of transparency, because people are going to say, oh my God, nope, that's not necessarily true. That Israel ended up getting a couple ballistic missile impacts. A lot of them were spread out, actually north, mid, and southern Israel. The one video that I actually have of one of those ballistic missile impacts comes right outside of Haifa, and it ended up detonating right along a highway. Give me a sec. I'm actually looking for it right now because, I'm like transparent guy. Everybody's like, no, Matt, like Israel's getting crushed. The false information that's coming out is that like a third of Tel Aviv has been completely and totally collapsed. Like a third of Tel Aviv is destroyed. People are running throughout the streets, and everything's just freaking shut down. But that's not the case. I'm gonna go through the comments right after this video here. That's pretty wild, man. Can you imagine driving down the highway? Like, I don't know how many Iraq vets we have in the house today, but or Afghan vets that we have in the house today, but yeah, it's kind of what that reminded me of a little bit. Actually got an aftermath video of it. It's not even worth putting on the screen. There's a little bit of crater off to the side of the road. Some of the concrete's busted out, but nothing too insane as it goes through. Let's see here. We got a Jacob Visor that says, Banana Gang holla, our church security team is ramping up, more men on duty and training twice a week. Yeah, for those of you guys that don't know, when it goes down to active shooters, a lot of people think schools are the primary target for active shooters, but believe it or not, it's churches. So if you are going to church and it's illegal, or you have a security team, if you don't have a security team, get one, man, because that is always your actual biggest threat. Keith Lewis says, 20 months, baby. Keep up the great work, Matt. That means Keith Lewis has been a true supporter for 20 months. Hell yeah, brother. Kenneth says, so admitting to war crimes on TV, that's smart. Yeah, I mean, they're freaking stupid. Derek Jackoff, or I'm sorry, Joliffe. Oh, buddy, I read your name wrong. Derek Joliffe, what are your thoughts about the threats from Russia? Oh, that's right. We already covered that one. Turbo Cars and Bikes, everybody in the chat, please wish Matt a very happy birthday. We appreciate everything you do. Aw, thanks, buddy. Greatly appreciate it, man. Texas Bully Mom, do you think Russia will treat Ukraine more brutally, and China towards Taiwan? Don't know if I missed you covering it already. So Russia has actually, to answer you there, Texas Bully Mom, Russia has actually been slamming Kiev lately. And it's almost been like a nonstop deal where I think that every time I look, there is drones that are just slamming into civilian infrastructure over inside of Kiev. Do I think that's going to change? No, I don't. I think that's just going to continue to ramp up as more attention gets drawn away. And I've talked about this on previous streams. It was actually like a year ago I ended up bringing this up, that it's my thought that Russia actually orchestrated a bunch of this stuff that we're currently seeing in the Middle East, and we most certainly have signs of it. All right, we have signs of Russia working side by side with Hezbollah, going against the Assad regime. We definitely have very close ties between Russia and Iran. We have Russian weapons. It was 2 weeks ago I saw a brand new shipment of Russian weapons that arrived over to Hezbollah over inside of Lebanon. I can go all the way back to October 7th, and I can show you Russian speakers on the ground breaching walls with advanced breaching charges going through T-walls, which I don't feel like explaining because I've done that several times, but it's been about a year, so maybe it's time to retouch on that. And so I do believe that Russia is playing a very significant role here, kind of behind the scenes. But what they don't want to do is kind of step into the forefront. The reason Russia would be doing that is so that a lot of the attention ends up getting drawn away from what's taking place over inside of Ukraine, so that Russia can then open up and start using some very questionable weaponry and very questionable tactics. Whether or not they end up using chemical weapons openly on the front line is going to be one of those things. There's multiple reports of chemical weapons that have been used, not just tear gas. Okay, over inside of Ukraine, that would be blistering agents, have been reported within the last 6 months over inside of Ukraine, but it's not making mainstream media, and that's okay for now until it's not, right? And then the international community is going to be caught off guard. I do not believe we're getting drawn into World War III with Iran. As far as China is concerned, studying Xi Jinping and looking at the different way he goes about doing things, Xi more or less would like to collapse us financially. I don't think he is really going after the U.S. militarily, and he's not going to go into Taiwan because it's way too risky for him right now, and there's no guarantee that he would end up taking it. As a matter of fact, if what we're seeing in Iran, you could take that and just flip it over to Taiwan, you know, like the U.S. military response. And don't get me wrong, we have a buttload of firepower in U.S. military assets over in the region inside of the Persian Gulf. But what I think that Xi is more concerned about is, number one, there's really only one way for him to get into Taiwan, and like the reef system and stuff that's kind of around Taiwan kind of like channels them in to this specific area. So making a ground assault on Taiwan would be very, very hard for them, number one. Number two, U.S. actually has a lot of interest over inside of Taiwan as far as technology is concerned. We've got a lot of things that are based out of there. And the damage that would do to the United States of America, I think the financial cost of that alone, what would end up happening in the United States, we would defend that freaking tooth and nail. So Xi knows that, and he's not dumb enough to go in there. He needs to wait for like kind of the U.S. to collapse a little bit. Happy Guy, where you go? Happy Guy coming in. He says, thanks, Matt, for pointing out the radical jihadist Nazi ideology of the Iranian regime. They believe in an all-out world domination. Trump and Netanyahu did the world a huge favor. TBD if that favor has actually been done yet. All right, we don't have confirmed. We do not have it confirmed that we ended up actually destroying Fordo. Number one, it looks like it on imagery, but we don't have it confirmed that they destroyed Fordo. It said that new airstrikes are taking place outside of Fordo, kind of like ongoing as we speak, where we are continuing to target some of the tunnel entrances. It looks like, or excuse me, not the United States, but Israel is targeting the tunnel entrances to Fordo, trying to collapse those suckers down. There was reports that came out, and I looked at the imagery, and I don't see what the hell they're talking about, saying that Iran was basically trying to wall off the tunnels into Fordo to kind of protect them in a way. That doesn't make sense when you understand explosives and how those work. Because if they did, you know, pile up a bunch of dirt at those tunnel entrances prior to the strikes, what you end up doing is containing that blast even more. All right, you want that blast to be able to go out, vent, all right, and go out different places. The more you end up containing it, the more it's going to reverberate inside, and the more damage it's going to end up causing. So I don't believe that to be true. But I do believe that the airstrikes that are being conducted over at the tunnel entrances make perfect sense. Why wouldn't we want to collapse those after we just ended up bombing the crap out of it? Keep them out of there as best as humanly possible. So yeah, to be determined whether or not we actually did get the job done. The United States says we're confident that we did it, or have a high degree of confidence that we ended up accomplishing it, but we'll see. CH comes in, gifting How You Speak the Truth membership. 3M Forge says, thanks to everybody for the birthday wishes. 40 years old, and I'm still an idiot. Oh, 3 a.m. Welcome to the frickin' over 40 club, buddy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy birthday. Tom Bones, I might have missed it, but do we know the extent of damage of the enrichment facility? I believe I just covered that. No, we do not. But when we look at the imagery on that enrichment facility, in Matt's opinion, it's kind of clear, okay, that we ended up, these are the satellite images that we ended up getting out of there. We can see these 2 different strike locations at Fordo. You can see 3 holes in each of these different red circles that are on the mountain. We're going to zoom in. You can take a good look at them. You see that white powder that's all over the mountain that is said to be concrete. Experts have analyzed and said concrete, and that is a very good sign that we ended up hitting the actual facilities that we were looking for. And when you actually overlay that, all right, with the blueprints that we know of, it most certainly looks like that is exactly what the United States was capable of doing and was successful in both locations. You know, within that tunnel system. Now, obviously the orientation, I chose not to like spin things and make the orientation better. Yesterday was Sunday. I was sleepy. I got kids, man. I got a family. I got things to do with my life, but it's enough that you can take that and you could determine on your own. It's very, very clear that it looks like we actually had good effects on target. Sun Wu Kong had a yellow one earlier. Oh my goodness, son, I miss you. I'll go back and check. Stephen Short coming in with 2. He says, saw reports that uranium was removed before the strikes. Yep, and I actually just talked about that a little bit. Let me go back and see if I can find Sun's comment. I don't know how I missed it. Sun, I'm not seeing your comment on here at all. I don't see it at all. It's not showing up on my end, Sun, so I don't know what to tell you about that one. As far as those reports about it going down, right. So in total, we dropped the 14 GBU 57s. All right. We know from this imagery that at least 6 ended up getting dropped on Natanz. I find it very unbelievable, or excuse me, on Fordo. I find it very unbelievable that our munitions were that precise that we were able to get it inside of each hole. I looked, and they did say that they have plus or minus 3 meter impact locations. And when you look at how those freaking bombs are arrayed and you think about how it's going in there, yeah, you kind of want to stagger it out almost like a linear target, right? Like if I am not 100% certain, I'm going to want these things staggered in this type of arrangement, all right, going into the mountain one after the other. So maybe what you're looking at there is, as a matter of fact, 12 impacts, all right, of those bombs in 6 different holes, and that we ended up dropping 2 per hole. All right, all the way down. We staggered those out to make sure that we actually got it, if that makes kind of sense to you guys. So if I know that tunnel system is between A and B, I want to bomb here, I want to bomb here, and I want to bomb here, and I'm going to chase that with like another bomb to make sure that we get the job done and it drills deep enough all the way down to the bottom. But that still doesn't account for 2, all right, of the GBU 57s, which did impact Natanz. Now, why would we drop GBU 57s on Natanz? Well, if they were storing uranium there and they had it buried deep underground, that makes sense for those GBU 57s to be dropped there. And that's likely where we ended up going over and destroying them. Free J says, Shalom from Israel. Without regime change, it's all pointless. Right. And that's something that I have been stating for a very long time. You can knock out the nuclear facilities, but what you cannot do is you cannot guarantee long-term peace and stability over in the region. You cannot guarantee long-term peace and stability over inside the region or for Israel unless the Iranian regime is destroyed. And I echo all the way back to the video of the Iranian general that I was showing you guys earlier. That would prove that. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. Kirk says, any thoughts on the NATO alliance if any allies decide to back Iran? How would that work, being that they were declaring the U.S. strikes preemptive? Not really worried about NATO getting involved in this. I don't think we need to worry about NATO getting involved in this. That's actually not what NATO was formed for. So look at what NATO actually exists for. It's to combat Russian aggression, Russian expansion, on and on and on. Can it be used in different ways? Absolutely. The U.S. enacted Article 5 following the attacks on September 11th. But I'm not that concerned about it because the U.S. has more than enough capabilities. I think between the U.S. and Israel, it's really kind of obvious that we've got enough assets in the region in order to take care about it. Yeah, if any of our allies decide to back Iran, like Turkey per se, I think that would be very bad for Turkey. Turkey gets plenty of money and plenty of stuff from the United States government, and they have other interests throughout the region that might not necessarily align should they choose to take Iran's side like this. So they have to be very strategic about it. But again, radical ideology and beliefs that go into it, I could see it happening. It's not, outside of the realm of possibilities. One of the biggest things that's actually within the realm of possibilities is actually Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. They did, in fact, vote on this, but it is not completely and totally secure yet. Let me get you guys where the current vote count is at. I have this up on my other screen over here. It looks like they did pass the vote to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, but it still has another layer of scrutiny it has to go through before it can get there. Excuse me, I don't have it pulled up down here, but it does. It's got another vote that it's got to go through before they actually shut it down. People are saying that the shipping lanes over inside the Strait of Hormuz, there's a bunch of ships that are avoiding it and trying to get away from it. Not so much. I'll show you in just a sec.
I can assure you the administration is actively and closely monitoring the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian regime would be foolish to make that decision. I can assure you.
Yeah. Why is it foolish to make that decision? Because you're impacting somewhere between 20 to 30% of the world's oil supply if you were to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And have we seen any signs that the Strait of Hormuz is being shut down? Well, I don't know. Let's just jump over and take a look at the map real quick and see whether or not the Strait of Hormuz is, like, any of the shipping has been affected by it. And as you can quite clearly see here on this map, no, this is the Strait of Hormuz. And there's tons of ships right now that are currently passing through it unimpeded, zero issues whatsoever. They haven't shut it down. There is, how do I want to say this, fear mongering of people that are out there claiming that all of these ships are avoiding it. But as you guys can see, there's more than enough merchant traffic currently flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if Iran did decide to shut the Strait of Hormuz down, you better believe that it's going to get caught with military action. They're going to get a warning. They're going to get told, don't you dare do that. Get your ass out of there. But as a matter of, like, we're going to open that strait, right? Like, the market is too shaky for Iran to be doing something like that. If you end up screwing with money, that's where things really start going crazy. Like, look, Iran having nuclear capabilities is a problem. Iran affecting global oil trade is a much bigger problem. All right, as far as people are concerned, Americans don't give two shits for the most part whether or not Iran's got a nuclear weapon. Most people were blown away the fact that we even dropped bombs on Iran, even though that everybody that follows this channel knew it was going to happen. You want to see Americans get pissed off? You want to see the EU get upset? Close this freaking straight down, right? Like, this would be a major issue. So I don't think it's in Iran's best interest. Sun Wukong says, very well, the War Power Act implies that sustained operations need congressional approval. We're talking back to the, we're taking back the Straits of Hormuz probably, from Iran's Navy, be considered new or sustained operations. So those would be considered new operations, number one, but you got to also remember that these must actually have a threat to the United States of America, right? And so, like, all of that, all right, the War Powers Act implies that there is a direct threat to the United States of America, and the president must act, and he must brief Congress. And I can't remember if it's 60 or 90 days he's got the ability to pretty much wage war before getting congressional approval. And so, yeah, in my opinion, that would be kind of like one of those things where you would most certainly need some approval to actually start blowing up their Navy if they end up deciding to shut that blockade off. But in order to do that, you got to remember that there's U.S. warships over in the region. Okay, so just because Iran announces it's closed off, we've got a buttload of ships over there, to include a nuclear submarine that decided to surface itself in the area. That would be a really ballsy move for Iran, to be perfectly honest. And I wouldn't be surprised if Iran did that, if they ended up firing shots at those U.S. ships that are over floating throughout that region. If they did that, that would give Trump essentially like carte blanche to just go ahead and just start nuking the crap out of all those freaking Iranian ships as they try to shut it down. But the question is whether or not they actually try to do so without naval force. Let's say Iran starts launching ballistic missiles. Let's say Iran starts, launching cruise missiles. Let's say they start launching whatever, drones, to go over and start like warning ships not to be doing so. If they end up doing that and they shut that down and they don't target warships, then in Matt's opinion, we start crossing it into that gray area. And I would agree that that does not necessarily fall underneath the War Powers Act, at least from what I've read. Maybe I'm wrong. Big Toe says, doesn't 45% of Chinese oil imports transit through? Yeah, it's a very high percentage. And so if they end up shutting that strait down as well, it's going to impact China in a very poor way. William Boffman coming in, becoming a true supporter as well. What I want to do is I want to open up the Discord, because I'm sure there's about 1,000 things that I have brought up that you guys have questions on that maybe I didn't cover. Excuse me, I know I brought up a lot of information in the show, but I guarantee there's a lot of other questions or a lot of other information that you guys are going to want to talk about. So I'm going to go over into the Discord server and try to take a couple of your guys' questions as we sit here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. If you guys want, and you're a true supporter, you've got a link. Get your butt over there. It is underneath the post. I'll make sure that for all of the brand new true supporters, and Will Boffman becoming a true supporter. Awesome to have you, friend. 3M Forge coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have questions on any of this stuff, or if there's something I haven't covered, or there's something you want me to look into, if you guys want to talk about certain things, or you disagree with me, I don't really care. And you're a true supporter, get your butt up over into the Discord. I'd be happy to bring you guys up and we can talk about it. First one I'm bringing up is Aaron. It's really hard for me to read your name. Looks like Aaron Feldman. I'm not really sure, brother. What's up, Aaron?
You got it. Feldtime.
What is it?
Feldtime.
Okay.
T-I-M-E.
What's up, Aaron?
Yeah, so by the way, appreciate your coverage on this stuff. I was waiting for this to happen, and you did great. Your coverage is great, so I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no worries, man.
So about the strikes on Fordo. So I saw reports, like you said before, how there was they blocked it off, and other people are saying they took out the uranium, and then Israel said that they know where it is, and then Iran said they lost it. So do you have any clarity on that? And what's the possibility they actually did take it out? And if it was only 60%, does it even matter? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, so my opinion on it is the enrichment sites, for sure. I think we can say -4. I mean, for Doe, obviously it looks like we did a very good job, like hitting it. Like just from satellite imagery, it certainly looks like we had good effects on target over at Fordo. And even if we didn't, I mean, we've set them back quite a while to rebuild, especially underneath all of these strikes and stuff like that are taking place, right? If we didn't hit their uranium stockpiles, let's just say, for example, we didn't, and all they have, which was reported by the IAEA, is the 60% enriched uranium, they would still need to be able to enrich that up to like 90+% in order to make it weapons grade. Problem is that all of their freaking enrichment sites have been getting the living hell bombed out of them. And there is so much intel on the ground right now over inside of Iran that continues to pour out. I think the moment that Iran or the Ayatollah gives the go-ahead to enrich the uranium for weapons grade and to put together nuclear weapons, I think that would open up a whole new can of worms to where Trump would again be capable of acting. And I would be shocked if we didn't have a plan in place to already take care of that.
Yeah, 100%. No, so also about the Strait of Hormuz. I was actually looking, and that wouldn't even, I think it's like 7%, maybe I'm wrong. I saw someone that said 7% of the U.S. and then like 45, I saw someone said it in the chat, 45 of China. And I don't know what interest China has, but in my opinion, that affects China a lot more than it affects us. And China being Iran's ally, I would have to think they're saying you better not shut it down, because that would piss them off more than it would piss us off, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You and me are seeing eye to eye right there.
Yeah, and then the last thing, how much? So I know there was a talk about like the stockpile and how much interceptors Israel has. I know they got new shipments and stuff from Trump and stuff, but how much do you think? Like, at what point does it become like a decision that like, all right, what are we gonna do? Are we just gonna go all out for ballistic missiles, or are we gonna use them all now, and then if they shoot them, or does Iran not have any more? Because the past few days, I mean, they've shot what they had. But there was at one point where they shot like one missile in like 24 hours. The other one, there was like 10 missiles. So even if they can't launch more than a certain amount at a specific amount of time, because Israel destroyed all their launchers.
So Israel's claiming that, and this was a little bit stale, so it's last week, Israel's claiming that they destroyed 2/3 of the Iranian launchers, estimated, that they ended up taking out. And yes, there was that one report that ended up coming out that Iran ended up firing the one ballistic missile, which I would think it was just some people that were like, hell with it, I'm sending it, like just a random crew that just let it fly out of anger. But upwards of 50, somewhere in the general vicinity of 50 ballistic missiles have been launched since the attacks on Saturday over at Israel. The vast majority of them have been intercepted, and the ones that haven't, like I showed in that video earlier, have been splashing down in the middle of nowhere. So does Iran have the capability to keep going? Yeah, sure. So they've been shooting their medium-range ballistic missiles. They've launched a couple of their longer-range ones, or allegedly. But they also have a buttload of short-range ballistic missiles that they can launch. And those short-range ballistic missiles, those short-range ballistic missiles, I think, are those are what you're talking about with the threats. They don't have the ability to reach Israel, but they do have the ability to reach U.S. assets in the region.
Yeah, I already had like 8,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so I don't know
if it's accurate or not.
I don't put a lot of weight into Israel saying that they destroyed 2/3 of the launchers. I think it's pretty accurate, that they've got 40 to 50% of them taken out. But Iran still stores a buttload of this equipment underground, and kind of like Russia, they've got a bunch of old crap that's laying around. It's going to take them a while to lick their wounds and get it together. And I promise that currently they're working on a strike plan for how they want to go about doing it, a coordinated attack on U.S. facilities throughout the region, whether that's a ground attack with their jihadists, or a ground attack with their jihadists followed by freaking ballistic missile attacks, or ballistic missile attacks followed by ground attacks. Dude, who knows, right? What those nut jobs have planned, but yeah, it's still a threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think either way, whatever they try doing with Iran, that's going to be the biggest mistake this country has ever made, because Trump's not playing around. And if a U.S. soldier or a service member gets killed, I don't even know what's going to happen, because Trump's not going to have it.
We're going to kill it. We're going to kill people.
Yeah, 100%. And also about Israel, you have to think about also the mental aspect. If every single truck driver who's bringing out these missiles is just getting blown to shit after, there has to be, even if you believe in whatever you want, there's still a mental aspect of, my brother who we grew up together, and he drove out his missile truck, and now he's not with me anymore. And every single guy it's been happening to, basically you're driving into a death threat. So it has to be also like a mental aspect where they don't want to do it.
Yeah. That's a very real thing, and I've questioned it before. I've seen a couple of videos now, just a couple of videos that actually had personnel on the ground around some of these ballistic missile launchers. Other than that, most of them seem kind of abandoned, to be perfectly honest. And I don't know if that's them setting them up and go, like, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But I'll tell you the other portion of it is, while there is a large amount of people over inside of Iran that do not agree with what Israel's doing, or I'm sorry, that do not agree with what the Iranian regime is doing, there is still a lot of people inside of the Iranian military, inside of the IRGC in particular, that think, what Iran's doing is correct and holy. And if they lose their brother, they just chalk it up to jihad. Thank God he's in heaven. Now I'm going to go get my spot, and all my sins are going to be forgiven, right? Because I died waging jihad against the little Satan. So there is a lot of people that are going to be willing to give their lives for this cause over inside of Iran. How many? Dude, I don't know, to be honest. But I do believe that there's more than enough of them to continue to launch those things.
Yeah, that's what I also think is very, very important, that Israel's attacking these prisons, because those are the people who have already stood up even when there was no one attacking Iran. And now when Israel and the U.S. are just pounding Iran, they're the ones who already did it. So they'll do it again, and they'll get people to come with them. So that's all I got to say, but I feel like that's also something that's pretty big. But thank you for all you do, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. Texas, how goes it over there?
Hey, man. Oh, it's good. Just another day.
I'm sorry to hear that you were unable to link up with my friend.
Yeah, circumstances,
Yep, it happens.
Ukraine.
At the Ukraine.
Yeah. No big deal. But yeah, last night was another rough one. Today they just bombed a children's, some sort of children's place. I think it's like an orphanage or something in Odessa. Lucky that the kids weren't there, because it's summer break, but the staff was there. I don't know. It's just wild. I don't know. I think in a way, doing what the U.S. did, the way they did it, not really of what they did. Everybody knows the U.S. has this bomb and this bombers and the capability of it. That wasn't a big surprise. I think the way the U.S. did it, just telling everybody, you know what, just sit back, we give them 2 weeks, and then we just did it, different than the regular MO of the U.S. in prior administrations and stuff. I think that is going to send some sort of message to China and Russia. I don't know what's going to come out of it, because today you see the Iranian foreign minister and the Iranian foreign minister and the Iranian
meeting up with Putin.
Else. Yeah, went to Moscow and meeting up with.
I think
Putin,
it's all for show. I think that's all for show. I mean, Putin's been.
I don't know.
If Putin wanted to protect his interests, don't you think he would have acted by now?
I don't think it's about protecting their interests. I think that they're like, yo, listen, like, you know, we need to talk because we had a deal. What's happening? I think that they're like trying to figure out what's going to happen. I think they're going to get the same answer as Putin basically gave them in the beginning. I don't think they're going to get any military support. They don't have the capability. Russia's facing a whole nother problem that I looked into this weekend that most people don't talk about. In Moldova, there's an area called Transnistria.
Yes.
It's occupied by Russia and ran by a puppet government that Russia put in place, and it's governed by Russian military and Russian police and whatnot. The problem is that the contract of gas to Transnistria through Ukraine was ended in 2025, in the beginning of 2025, and Ukraine has not renewed it. Now they're running out of they had a rough winter, but they had enough saved up to survive the winter. Now they're running out of they're doing daily blackouts, cycle through power stations. And now at this point, Russia's had to pull out soldiers from there because they needed bodies. So it's down to less than 1,000 soldiers that are in Transnistria right now. And the government of Transnistria, which is the puppet government that Russia put in place, is apparently crying right now to Russia that they're gonna fall apart if they don't have $100 billion or some shit.
Well, I don't think they have the ability to do a damn thing. Yeah.
And I don't think Russia they can't military. I don't think they can get involved anywhere right now. They're busy. I sent you a leaked screenshot of a Russian military Telegram group that I know personally. I can tell you, I know the source where that came from, and the source is real. It's translated. And this is about what we were talking about weeks ago about the Sumy operation that Russia was doing, the Sumy offensive. And they are getting their teeth kicked in. I'm talking about really, really. Yeah, it's on our side also. I've talked to guys that are in Sumy right now. I just spoke to a friend of mine last night that is in Sumy currently, and they're getting hammered, mainly artillery and drones, mainly on their positions. But they haven't moved. The Russians cannot cross even the first line of defense. They cannot reach it.
That's what I'm saying.
Their shit kicked in. And if you read the messages of what they're saying, in one assault, they lost a platoon to prisoners. They had a platoon that was captured, almost a whole platoon, and then another platoon was KIA in one assault. It's this happens on a daily basis. So with money, Russia can't help Iran because money is good in a long-term solution for anything. In a short-term solution, money can't shoot things at stuff. You can buy stuff, but if there's no inventory to buy, you can take all the money in the world and you can't have what you want to buy. So I don't think Russia can help Iran. I think Iran is really shit out of luck. I think we're really going to see a regime change. It's going to happen. People can say whatever they want. People can say they like it, they don't like it. It's good for the people of Iran or not. In the end of the day, it's going to happen. It's already in effect. The fact that the U.S. did what they did and the way they did it and the way they make statements about doing it, it's going to happen. I don't see an outcome where the Ayatollah comes out on top and survives this anyway.
I agree with you, man. And somebody asked me if the Ayatollah is still alive. Yeah, he's still alive to the best of my knowledge. He's there. So I don't think the Ayatollah is going to go anywhere. Somebody says, what are your thoughts if community is deep in a bunker where Israel would need U.S. again? So U.S. government has said that Iran needs to come to the table on this, that we want a peaceful resolution. And if Iran does not come to the table, that it's going to be very, very bad for them. And I think that is exactly why Trump ended up making that post about a regime change. And in order for that regime change to take place, I think the big spark for the people would be Khamenei getting killed. And Trump's already stated that we know exactly where he is. And I don't think he's lying about that. So Khamenei is alive, not through the grace of God, but through the grace of the United States of America. And if he doesn't come to the table, he is going to die. And I do believe that the U.S. would take part in those strikes because we do want a regime change. It's one thing if Israel ends up killing Khamenei. It's another thing if the United States of America ends up killing Khamenei. That's a completely and totally different message.
I think it's going to be more of a, this is especially my opinion, and I might be completely off on this one, but I think it's going to be more of a like Bin Laden style thing where he's going to go into hiding. There's going to be a regime change while he's in hiding, and there's going to be like some sort of task force to hunt the rest of his people and him down in hiding. Because we both know that as good as our intel is, we might know where he is, maybe, but Iran is fact known to be like very, very similar to like the type of environment that you have over there in Afghanistan. Also, they have vast mountains, they have vast desert style thing, and there's a lot of caves and tunnels, and we, with the infrastructure that we've seen that they built in places like the places that were hit, we know that they have the capability and had the capabilities to build these kind of infrastructures over the last 20 years without being looked at too much. So they might have built a lot of, and I think they did, places similar on a smaller scale that might not hold nuclear centrifuges or whatever they need to do these things, which is more of like go into hiding. We have enough to live here for a long time and try to control the little bit of militias that he'll have around with the limited communications. And I think it's going to go into like some sort of like stretched out long-term hunting down him and the people around him and all these different little groups while there is already a new regime being put in place.
Yeah, you're probably
it's like,
right.
Special forces get to operate there because now the new regime gives U.S. permission for SOF to be on the ground and help implement that. I see that down the road where it's like,
if we did, I don't think we'd be open about it though. And I also think that Israel would likely end up taking a larger part in that than the United States of America, just because Trump doesn't want to put boots on the ground.
But not if he does something stupid.
If he does something stupid, he's dead and the gloves come off, right? But that's the catch right there, is the Ayatollah also knows that.
Yeah, but if okay, let's say he does something stupid, Trump orders, we know where he is, he orders a strike on that place, the same thing happened, we smash that bunker, we get intel 3 days later, he's alive, he's somewhere else, that nobody knows where, he's in a different bunker. So you start hunting him now, it starts the same hunt. So at that point, you're not going to keep bombing places hoping he's there. Once you bomb a few spots and a high-value target isn't there, you missed him, it's going to turn into something like, let's put boots on the ground. Not like, I'm talking about like...
In the odd chance that we don't know where he's at, which I'm quite positive we do, but in the odd chance that we don't know where he's at and we end up missing strikes and he's still alive, you know, the other option for that doesn't necessarily have to be U.S. boots on the ground, like as far as our military is concerned. There's different ways to get that information out there and to actually drive people over to that without the military officially being on the ground over there. And whether or not the Ayatollah is alive, right? Like, let's say we bomb and try to kill him. There's ways to suppress the Ayatollah to make sure that his information and his messages are not getting out, to make everybody question it. And at the same time, we're pushing local forces to go in and actually kill him and or locate him so that we can bomb and kill him. Does it, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other. Like, this is the age of technology. We can pretty much silence the guy if we really want to.
Yes, but like, okay, so how many, let's give a rough estimate based off your information. How many men do you think he has that are loyal to him? I'm talking about like gun, like I will walk into a burning building loyal, or I will strap on a bomb to my chest loyal to him, roughly.
out
of the 90 million people that live in Iran.
That would strap a bomb to their chest? I don't know, man. I haven't thought about that. I haven't gone that in depth to see how many people would strap a bomb to their chest to die for the Ayatollah. But I think a lot of people would strap a bomb to their chest to die, which I guess in their mind might be one and the same, to die for the cause. Yeah. Which should be the majority of the hardcore believers.
So now let's say it's only like 1% of the country. Let's say only 1%. That's a lot of people that he can control from sitting in a bunker with suppressed technology. Like it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult. But
right.
It's still something that's gonna be possible for him to do. I think it's gonna. I don't know. It's just my opinion.
Let me ask you this question: How well do you think that would go for those people that? Because the same thing could be said for inside Gaza, right? That you have those people that are very diehard believers that are willing to fight and die for the cause. And once all of that started shifting and changing, and that's the key, right? Like I like looking at Gaza because it's like a little micro regime change, if you will, that's taking place inside of there right now. There's got to be something that ends up triggering it. There's got to be something that ends up making people stand up. U.S. getting involved. And Trump talking about a regime change within itself, I think, is enough to where people get there. And even during the height of like Israel's offensive, before they ended up clearing all the way through, we were getting reports of people defecting, and some of their hardcore freaking fighters like defecting, right? And so I think you're going to see a lot of people that defect, but I think you're right that there's going to be several people that don't defect that kind of like remain in place and don't want to go anywhere. I think the further, like once that goes down and you start like pushing deeper and deeper and deeper, that threat just slowly starts to diminish over time. I hope that kind of like makes sense for you. That's the way I see it going down.
It makes sense, but I'm just saying, like, if we look at history in that region, it never was a fast, quick in anywhere. Tell me one time anywhere in that region that anything similar to this happened. And it was like, yeah, let's do it quickly. It's going to be like a 1, 2, 3, like regime change. And
it doesn't work that way. We did a regime change over inside of Iraq, right? We ended up getting rid of Saddam's regime. And even to this day, you still have hardcore fighters and all of that other crap. Those people get taken care of by that local government that ends up getting put in power, that ends up having a bunch of people that get behind them, because you still have...
How many years did it take in Iraq?
It's ongoing to this day. It's ongoing to this day. So the same problems are going to persist over inside of Iran. Differences between those two countries are pretty damn extreme. They really are. So I think that they would be capable of taking care of that on their own, to be perfectly honest with you. And all of that fighting that would be taking place in Iran would actually be a good thing for the rest of the world, because they'd be busy fighting amongst themselves. Like, I don't see a need for us to get involved there. I got to bring in Mitten's comment here, which is pretty actual notable. It's not wrong. Mitten says that they did an interesting exercise where they fed 180 IAEA reports into ChatGPT from 2010 to 25. A few of the notes coming out of the summary included, 83.7% enriched uranium particles that were found in 2015. And I did read that report, and that's absolutely true, that happened. But whether or not, I think it's silly. I can't for the life of me picture that Iran hadn't tried to enrich uranium beyond 60% at this point. But whether or not they've taken it, weaponized it, conducted tests, and all other crap is a completely different story. I want to bring in Banshee because he's been waiting nice and quietly. Banshee, long time no hear. What's up, buddy?
So I'll take the controversial side today. I actually agree with Texas. I feel like Iran's going to be a Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Ukraine issues all combined into one shit show.
Okay, why?
You have the religious zealotry of the Afghanistan and the Mujahideen, or whatever it's pronounced.
Mujahideen?
Mujahideen.
The tunnels and guerrilla warfare tactics, and every child's potentially a soldier of Vietnam. And then you're going to have the drones and technological warfare that Ukraine's having to deal with.
Okay. So
I feel like it's just going to be a weird combination that most militaries aren't going to be prepared or trained to handle.
Well,
So we look at Vietnam, we're fighting communist aggression. We look at Ukraine, the same exact things going on. We look at Iran, and we're fighting radical religious ideology, and the battlegrounds in between these two places are completely and totally different. While over inside of Vietnam,
being more like the tunnel rat side.
I'm sorry?
The tunnel rats. Remember, like that whole having to go in underground and fight them out of tunnels.
Sure, right? That's just a tactic that they were using back then. But what I'm saying is that you have a different, you basically have different motivating factors that are taking place here. And you have some things that have been happening over time inside of Iran that personally I think are pretty damn true, where you have a lot of people that are really, really pissed off. And not that that didn't happen inside Vietnam, but you've got kind of a different story here. You've got entire chunks of the military that are breaking off and going in there. And let's say, because again, Truman Doctrine of fighting communism and all that other crap, this is not that case, right? And even if we look at what's taking place in Ukraine, you could say that Truman Doctrine's kind of fallen off and the U.S. is refusing to get involved there. So if the U.S. is refusing to get involved inside of Ukraine, other than, you know, supplying a material support, intelligence sharing, the things that are open that we can speak about, right? If the U.S. is refusing to really get involved above ground, above board with the world over inside of Ukraine with massive amounts of Russian aggression, why do we think that the U.S. would get involved over inside of Iran? There's just no signs, in my opinion, that are pointing towards that, of actually putting boots on the ground.
Israel.
There is one sign. There's one sign pointing to it. The U.S. just bombed Iran.
Well, we bombed their facility to reduce the nuclear threat.
But that's just one sign.
Russia or Russian troops.
I mean, that we know of.
Texas has a point there. Because, yeah, this is broadcasted everywhere. Like, was on the news all weekend.
So the difference is we're going after a nuclear threat. We're going after a nuclear threat, not the regime right now. And if we were to target anybody, it's going to be Khomeini as number 2 and probably several key leaders of the IRGC to cause that disruption, to allow this regime change to take place. It's already like spawning.
So
yeah, I just want to, Benji, I just want to clarify one thing. You started off by saying that you agree with me that it's going to be a long-term, like, one thing I never called for something that I think it's going to be boots. Like, I'm talking about like the military is going to set up FOBs and bases in Iran. No, that's not what I was saying.
Right.
What I was saying is it's going to be a long-term hunt where there's going to be a SF task force put together from different people who don't exist on paper, and they're going to do hunts on hunts on hunts. It's going to be that style of ops versus just bombing locations hoping he's
and
there.
It's going to be stuff like when we went into Cambodia with special forces, where we're in a country that isn't part of the battle, but that's where the dude's hiding to operate behind the line, or like Ukraine has had to do with special forces, or Afghanistan when we hunted down Osama.
It's possible.
That's why I was like, there's a lot of similarities to those 3 conflicts.
It's possible, right? It is an option that's going to remain, but you only need that option if there's not something else, right? So, for example, Afghanistan, putting boots on the ground over inside of Afghanistan, following that, the Northern Alliance versus the Taliban. All right, we go in there to hunt down Osama bin Laden to take his ass out because he is that direct threat that we're worried about over inside the United States of America, and linking up with the Northern Alliance and to assault like the new government, etc. Taliban was a hell of a lot formidable of a force than the Northern Alliance was. So we end up bringing across U.S. air support and a lot of U.S. might, and eventually way too many U.S. troops, in Matt's opinion, to make that actually effective. But at the same time, when you look over outside of Iran and you say, okay, well, massive amounts of the military are about to defect and join underneath the Crown Prince, that is a hell of a force. I think you're going to have way many people that are willing to defect and get away from the brutality of that regime in order to have some sort of peace than you are to have people stick around and be loyal, especially when people start dying.
70% or upwards of 70% that supported us in Vietnam until it was China backing the rebels that caused an issue. So even if, let's say, 60% leaves and becomes the rebels and we support them, Israel supports them, we're no boots on the ground, how long until China, Russia, some other force is going to start pushing the other side unless we do put an actual stake in the ground and say, hey, here's the line, don't cross it.
That's exactly the type of crap that was happening in Syria. And again, we had limited, which goes back to Texas's point, where we had limited special operations forces that were on the ground. But in my opinion, they're there combating something a little bit different over inside of Syria. But we have the same type of threats that it could actually exist over inside of Iran, which I could see, which why I'm like Texas, I could see it, but it's like little. But the difference is the amount of firepower that those people would end up bringing to the table once they defect. And that's going to essentially turn into a civil war. And what we've done historically in these instances is remained in proxy.
What do you think is going to happen if they do strike one of our bases or embassies, though? Because I know we evacuated an embassy out of Jordan, Syria, and Dakar.
Yeah, kill the Ayatollah and let the cards fall where they will. Allow that revolution to take place. Allow that civil war to spark off. Probably
kill
have
the
like,
Ayatollah is correct, but the question, it's just like, I'm not convinced that it's going to be easy. I have looked into how massive the tunnel systems and the underground bunkers that Iran has been building. They specialize it. They specialize on making concretes, different technology. There's companies that use formula of concrete in the rest of the world that Iran developed originally.
I understand this, and at the same time, the people that were digging those tunnels, that know the plans of those tunnels, that know the locations, that know the people that are in charge, it's their own neighborhood, are going to be the ones that are defecting. And the United States government likely, hold on. Now the United States government is also going to have a lot of that information. If the United States went balls to the wall and did a prolonged bombing campaign for a week, look at the damage that Israel has done. And they don't have nearly as formidable a force as the United States does. With just what we have staged over in the region right now, if we were to unleash unholy hell on them with the amount of munitions that we've been stockpiling in and around CENTCOM for the last like 6+ months, we would put a significant dent, which would make that threat even easier. And Israel's already degraded them to a significant extent as well.
Yes, but we've learned in that region, even now with the Houthis, like we've learned that just bombing and destroying surface level stuff from even smaller military they still have the capabilities of launching stuff currently after us bombing them for months, taking away a lot of their capabilities. We didn't
unleash what we have over in the Persian Gulf on the Houthis.
I know we didn't go all out, but it's still like bombing isn't always I think that just bombing places isn't like, I think if he sets up a way to move on a plan where he moves around.
Was there a civil war taking place over inside of Yemen when we were bombing them?
No.
Okay. No. And so was there people that were defecting? Was there generals that were pledging to go underneath somebody else over inside Yemen? No.
I'm not sure. There was some people on the ground somewhere. We know that from the signal message text or something.
Got it.
We know there was assets on the ground.
Sure. And intelligence assets versus actual people defecting and taking their militaries along with them in order to fight in a civil war is two entirely different things. And especially when we start talking about that amount of firepower, like it's going to be a lot. And you're talking about schwacking the Ayatollah. I mean, that's a completely different sway in things. I'm not saying it's not going to be a fight.
Now in hiding. I think he's already gone. I think he started his moving around process, and now the hunt has started already. I think the minute the U.S. bombed and announced that they bombed, he went deep in hiding. And if you look,
he's hiding.
Like, the more
I also know. Hold on. I also know where the Ayatollah attempted to go, and that didn't turn out good either. He's trapped. Ayatollah's trapped in Iran.
I hope so. If the easier, the smoother it is, the quicker the U.S. can move up from that region and start moving assets back into Europe. And I think they will. But I think the longer that takes is like it's gonna stretch U.S. and even NATO allied assets in that area. I don't know. We'll see. We can only sit here and like discuss it, and we'll just sit back and watch.
It's a good wargaming, to sit here and go back and forth on these things. But I want you to think about something, man. Like, I've been out of the game for years, and if I hear that credibly that I know where the Ayatollah was attempting to go and what he was attempting to do in order to hide out. And if I know that, I want you to picture what the people that still have active clearances actually know and where he's at and what he's doing.
Yeah, but how many times did people with clearances and actual intel on the highest level give information that we both know that we're like just 2 hours late or just 1 hour late?
Sure, it happens all the time.
So I just think the Ayatollah planned this for 25 years. Since 1995, he started his ultimate plan of building a vast systems of different places in this country. The country is so spread out. It's so big. It's massive for the region. And there's not a lot of populated areas. So like almost everything that they did in the last 25 years have been underground. And I've done a lot of research in the last 3 days on that country and in that region, and it's just crazy the amount of like even like people
Texas.
have been warning, hey, they're doing construction here.
Hey, Texas, would you be willing to bet half your Bitcoin on that?
No, absolutely not.
Texas, I got a question for you.
Exactly. Thank you for proving my point.
No, I wouldn't. I think that it's gonna be a long haul, though.
It's gonna be a fight.
I think that the days of we know where you are because we have ISR assets and you don't know that we do, and we're just gonna hit you with some bombs.
Right.
I think those days are gone.
I agree.
think the technology age. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just sit back. I'm enjoying this because it does, like I said, it does take my absolute digging on everything Russia is doing away for a little bit, and it lets me look into something else, and that's what I've been doing for the last couple of days.
Stimulates the brain.
I just think it's interesting because, people just don't look at the deeper part of what Iran has been doing, and they think, it's like Iran is bad, and they just have the Sharia law, and they must go. I'm like, that's not it.
It's a lot deeper.
They put all their money. On a plan, and I think this is their plan. The plan is to, like, when this happens, we're gonna go in and we're gonna control all these different groups. It's like his doomsday bunker or something. I don't know. We'll see.
I agree with you,
So
man.
with that being said, the reason you saw a lot of Israel missiles targeting highway infrastructure was there was a rumor 30 to 40% of their enhanced uranium was able to get trucked out to other facilities, and that's what
that has been debunked
on the road. But if any of it got out or is stored elsewhere, and this starts to flip where they're the losing side, how much do we want to bet that they just slap the uranium in a regular bomb and just make a dirty bomb if they can't make a nuke in time?
That's also suicide for them. Let them try. I mean, let them try, man.
But suicide for them is still a victory. That's part of, like, how do you defeat someone that
you kill them?
Like, that's the issue we faced in Vietnam, where killing them was still a victory to them.
No, you kill them. And the issue here with Vietnam versus this one is, in Vietnam, you've actually got warfare taking place, and you've got a lot of politicians that are kind of like jumping in the mix for that, right? Same thing with Afghanistan. We ended up having politicians that jump in the mix for that and end up controlling all of the different movements. And this one, it's a little bit different because you've got limited boots on the ground. So in my opinion, you have a greater chance for success. The moment Congress gets involved, it starts screwing the pooch on everything, right? It really does. Like in this case, more hands make it worse, right? The moment the government gets involved, the government is the one that's always screwing shit up, right? And so we saw it in Vietnam where the government's screwing shit up. We saw it in Vietnam where the government was screwing shit up. We saw it in the global war on terror where the government and politicians are screwing that up. In this case, we have something that's very specific, right? We have a nuclear threat that we want gone, and we have a leader that if he doesn't get in line, he's going to end up getting deleted himself. And the government doesn't necessarily have to get involved for that. And I think that it is very wise for this administration. We saw this administration not informing people of these strikes beforehand. And they were pissed, like government officials being left out of the loop for a reason, because the government screws things up. It just does.
Like, I mean, you can't keep OPSEC between the whole Senate and House of Representatives and the media.
Right.
realistically.
I'm gonna bring Deuce Central in for whatever he's got or she's got, and then I'm gonna end up shutting it out after that. Go ahead, Deuce Central.
I'm gonna jump off real quick. Matt, take a look at what I sent you. Have a laugh. I gotta jump off.
Okay, thanks, brother.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man. I was just wanting to go back to this War Powers Act thing. Don't we have treaties as far as the right for navigation on the seas that we do enforce by treaty?
I mean, I'm gonna have to look into that one. To be honest with you, I'm not read up on the treaties for navigation.
Okay, then. I just wanted to throw that out there because I remember hearing something about that we enforced that freedom of navigation on the seas.
We do. I know we do that. I absolutely know we do that. But like the specific laws and authorities and stuff like that go into it and what the triggers would be, I'm not that read up on it that I can sit here and speak eloquently on it right now. So I'll just back out of that one because I can't be an expert.
All right, brother.
But at least I'll admit it.
Have a good one, boss. Yes, sir.
You too, brother. Good point, though. All right, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you too as well. All right, everybody over inside Discord, I'm going to end up closing you guys out. I want to thank everybody for coming in and having that good old discussion today. I am going to then go ahead and sign out over on the good old Uist of Tubes. I will be back tonight, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I am out of here.